Welcome to Optimize Employee and Candidate Experience through Automation of HR Documents, an Unleash webinar in partnership with Spinifex IT, Payroll Optimization Specialists. I'm John Kennard, Editorial Content Manager of Unleash, the business intelligence platform for HR professionals, and I'm your host for today's session. We are delighted to welcome two great speakers to the webinar today to delve into this topic and offer cutting-edge insight and practical solutions for businesses of all sizes and industries. First up, we have Frank Sheek, Vice President EMEA and MEE, Spinifex IT Deutschland. And we also have Brendan Andrews-Warmoth, VP Product Enablement and Delivery, Spinifex IT. And I'm delighted to welcome you both to today's session. Anyway, let's get into the bulk of the presentation. Frank, it's over to you.
All right, thank you very much, John, for the introduction. My name is Frank Sheek from Spinifex IT. All right, when it comes to our presentation. So first of all, I want to give you a short overview about Spinifex IT before I start presenting the employee lifecycle of what we can support with our products. And then I hand over to Brendan. Brendan will give you a very huge and a very good overview about our product Strato, which is our product management and document management tool. And therefore, we will also have some additional success stories and a demonstration afterwards before we go into the Q&A session. All right, so Spinifex is a global company. We are on the market since 2004, and our focus is very much on HCM and HR topics. So we have a variety of products in the environment of SAP HCM and also SAP SuccessFactors. So, for instance, we have some products in the environment of how to make payroll more efficient, but also when it comes to document management and to cloning features between SAP HCM and also SAP SuccessFactors. So all our products are hybrid. This means all our products can be used for the on-premise SAP HCM system and also SAP SuccessFactors. So both is possible, and we take care of both worlds so on-premise and also the cloud world. We are also certified for SAP HCM for sure, also SAP SuccessFactors, and also ECP and PCE, so Employee Central Payroll, and also the Private Cloud Edition. So therefore, if you are thinking about future scenarios, you are very well supported by our products. So here we talk about the employee lifecycle and how we can support you best with our products. So as you can see here, the employee lifecycle. So this one starts directly with the candidate process in the recruiting and ends with offboarding in the best case when the employees retire in the company. So as you can see in the recruiting, we directly handle with some specific documents like offer letter, but also contract management here. And contract management is a very specific one because in the contract management, you can have a very huge process together with Strato and SuccessFactors. This means contract management can include also workflow and an approval workflow with the business, with the HR, and also maybe some with workers' council. So this is very specific for Germany. Anyway, and we have also the signature here, signature feature. So this means with Strato sign and also DocuSign, you are also able to sign the contract from a digital point of view. And at the end of the process, it is also possible to send the contract directly, automatically by the workflow into the storage, into the employee file. So along the entire employee lifecycle process, as you can see here, we support a lot of different use cases. We have also a very huge process map where we can explain all the different processes much more in detail, and we have very much direct use cases directly behind of this process map. So, for instance, if you look at the next steps, employment and also movements, we can show also some cross-boarding, some organizational changes, and then we also automate this kind of documents by sending them automatically to the employees. For instance, if it comes to bulk generation letters or documents like a COVID information letter or COVID situation letter from the company, so also this kind of documents are possible. but you can also generate single documents and letters for sure for the employees. So this can be triggered manually, so by the user itself, I mean by the HR admin itself, or it also can be triggered automatically by SuccessFactors directly from the process point of view. And as you can see, we have also some administrative and payroll documents available. So these kind of documents handles also the payment and also compensation statements between the employee and the company. And this kind of data comes sometimes, of course, from SuccessFactors, but also sometimes from the payroll system. This could be SAP HCM, or it could also be Employee Central Payroll. So as I said, Strato is also a hybrid tool. So this means it can also reach out to data which are in the SAP HCM environment available. And in order to that, and also to close this process, we have also the possibility to link to any other IT application tools as long as they have an API. So we can also link to these kind of systems and also include other data like an S/4HANA system, for instance, and to bring them into our documents. So that's it from a global point of view, and just to give you a little bit an overview what we can do with Strato, what is possible, and how you can use Strato. And now I will hand over to Brandon. So Brandon is our VP for product management, as John already said, and he will give you a much more precise overview about Strato documents, about some specific use cases, and finally a very good demonstration.
Thanks, Frank. Okay, very good. Thank you guys for the introduction. So I will be taking you through, as Frank mentioned, a little bit more detail around Strato, the solution itself. At a high level, we'll not dive in too deep, but want to highlight some key points to get an understanding of what we're explaining, especially when it comes to the success story and the demonstration. The success story is one that is focused on a very large customer. I'll get into the detail of that, and I think is a really interesting and great use case that we delivered there. And then I'll get into a demonstration, which I'll explain before the demonstration as well. So I'm guessing most people might be or might not be a little bit familiar with Strato. So we'll start with the what is Strato question. Strato is a full cloud software as a service system that we're providing. It's built to allow you to generate HR and payroll documents, create the documents, generate the documents, approve the documents, manage the documents as well from a personnel file perspective, really the entire life cycle of a document generation as it relates to employees for HCM and payroll documents. It's built to try to automate and really enhance that process as much as possible. So the features that you're seeing up there on the screen are those that really support that process. Some key things like having conditional formatting, having conditional sections within a document, automatically providing the right information in a document, not managing many templates and many different Word documents, but actually allowing automation within that generation. Things like managing different languages in documents, pulling data from many different data sources. Frank mentioned up front quite a few of the key ones. Of course, we're focusing mainly in the demonstration on SuccessFactors, but we also support SAP HCM, payroll systems, things like that, and any other sources we might need to pull in and bring in. One of the key things we'll talk to today as well is the workflow and the digital signatures. That one is something we provide as part of the Strato package. It has its own automation engine built in, as well as its own digital signature capabilities that we can leverage as well. And I guess a couple of the other key points down there would be around the self-service. You'll see a little bit of that. The demonstration will not be focused on that, but I'll show you it as I go through some of the other capabilities. And we'll also be able to see some of the interesting stuff around how do we store those documents once they're completed, how do we recall those, and how do we manage those. Before we get into, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the automation topics first. That will give us a bit more of a feel for, okay, when I'm doing different things in the demonstration, how are they working? So Strato has its own automation engine, I mentioned, built into it. That allows us to really control the document processes that we need to control. In our particular case, we're going to look at actually this example, the offer letter. So it's a good example here where we automatically generate the offer letter for a particular candidate. We send it off to the right people for approval. If we need to, we can send it back to other people for certain changes. We can send it on to upper level management for approval, all of those types of things. And in the end, providing those digitally signed documents to the candidate and also back into the system when we need it as a system of record. Some of the key points, things that we can do with the workflow. Basically, we will see all of these in the demonstration, except the last one, which is requiring a file attachment. That's one thing we built out, which is also quite handy, especially in the recruitment space, which is where we want to request someone to upload a document and then do something with that. So maybe when it comes time for the candidate to come to an interview, we send them a notification, remind them to bring in certain documents that we need or upload them, and also get them to provide their feedback on those types of things. So there's a couple examples there where those workflows are key, things like compliance documents, things like salary changes. The other key ones we're working on quite often are compensation statements. They need to be approved by the right people. They need to be monitored and moved through different processes to get to before they get to the employee. And the last part of the process, so if we look at Strado documents we talked to, which was, okay, how do we build up the generation of the documents? We talked to the automation of the processes, so that's how do we workflow the documents to the right places? And the last part is really the storage, which is, okay, when we have a document at the end, what do we do with it? In our demonstration today, I'm going to show you a really simple example, which is we store it back onto the candidate so they can access it easily. But we also have a more comprehensive personnel file solution within Strado, which is the Strado storage. It's very easy to use. You can see some of the key points, why you might see that as a valuable capability as well. Things like using authorizations automatically from SuccessFactors, automatically archiving expiring documents, things like that. So there's some key points for that too. So just to give a high-level overview, Strado and SAP SuccessFactors. Strado was developed very much to be alongside the SAP SuccessFactors system. We talked about, yes, we can include data from SAP HCM and things like that, but we're really closely integrated and tied together with the SuccessFactors environment. What does that mean? That means in the case of the single sign-on, how do I access Strado? I'm accessing it through SuccessFactors. It means when I want some data to go into my document, how do I get it? I use some standard SuccessFactors APIs, and I don't need anything additionally developed there. And how do I automatically trigger all these processes? I use something standard to SuccessFactors, which is called Intelligent Services. All of that then links directly into the Strado environment. So we talked about those elements of Strado, and then I'm able to provide the dashboard back into the SuccessFactors environment directly as well. So from a user experience perspective, it's very much a seamless integration. I don't even need to know necessarily I'm using a different system. I'm just accessing my document generation, my automation tool directly from the SuccessFactors environment, and it's very tightly together integrated. So to talk a bit more about the document generation before we get to the success story, we talk to the document generation maturity quite often when we're speaking with our customers. So what we typically see is a lot of customers are at this level 1 stage. Well, especially if they're asking us for help, that's probably why, because they're still down there at level 1, which is they have probably a whole stack of document templates somewhere, a shared drive, maybe it's on your SharePoint or something like that. Anytime they need to generate or provide a document to an employee or a candidate, they're opening up, trying to make sure they open up the right Word document. They're going into the system, SuccessFactors or SAP HCM, searching for the employee or the candidate, reading the information. If they're lucky, they've got 2 screens. They're reading the information on one screen and punching it in on the other. Or maybe they're doing copying and pasting, whatever that case may be. And then they're managing, saving that document somewhere, distributing it kind of manually. So that's really a very low level of document generation maturity, but very common in a lot of customers that we talk to. The issues there are, of course, there's no audit trail. It's not so well managed, and there's a lot of room for human error, especially, okay, whoops, I picked the wrong document. Whoops, I typoed the information when I was transferring it from the other system. Those types of things are where we see a lot of issues. The first step, and there's also a lot of customers who are at this level, is level 2 is really where you are more sophisticated, which means you have some kind of document generation solution. Maybe it's even just using mail merges in Word is kind of even already a step up, to allow to remove some human error. So when you're bringing data in directly from somewhere else, that's going to help because there's no typos. It does help you to standardize the document generation, but typically, and this is where I would say the standard SuccessFactors document generation tools fit, typically you're still having to pick the right template. You're still having to choose when do you trigger that document. You're still having to make sure you're managing that process yourself, and that still opens you up to issues with getting things out on time, producing the right documents at the right stage of a process, and also, of course, the audit and approval processes and things like that. Where we're going and where we'll see in the demonstration today is level 3. This is where we're automatically generating the right documents based on something happening the right moment. And we say these moments that matter. So when a candidate is approved to be offered a job, then the job offer letter should be generated. When a candidate is set to rejected within a system, then the rejection letter should automatically be generated. You don't want somebody to have to think about the right time to do those processes. You want those documents to be approved and managed and signed digitally within the system with traceability, with auditability, and with reportability. And of course, you want to be able to have some nice self-service opportunities as well. So it doesn't have to be that an employee is always coming and saying, hey, I need a certificate of employment. Can you fill that out for me that I can then take it to the bank? They should be able to generate that themselves, or at the very least do an online request that's then automatically provided with the right approvals. That's that level that we want to get to. So to take that all into the customer story, they are definitely at that level 3 maturity, thanks to Strato. So the customer we're talking about is a very large customer. I think they may be either one of or the largest across the globe. Don't quote me on that because I don't actually remember the stats. I did look them up at one point. But they brought us in because they were looking to streamline their recruitment process. So they had SAP SuccessFactors. They have kind of all of the modules, I would say. They have Employee Central, they have recruiting, they have SAP HCM as well. And they needed to find a solution that was capable of delivering that level of maturity that we talked about. They wanted to simplify their processes, and they wanted to drastically remove the amount of effort they were putting in, time and money, into actually building that out. They had a team, I can't remember the exact number, but they have a massive team, basically just, I think it was around 60 people that are just managing just the documents and just building out different documents for different parts of the company. It is global, so it's not as simple as just one country. So of course they have a large team to manage different languages, different requirements for different countries and things like that. But you can imagine, yeah, they have a very large team that's kind of building all of these out. So they came to us. We'd actually been working with them for quite some time with some of our other solutions in their legacy SAP HCM environment. We do a lot of work with them also as well. So they came to us and said, hey, we need a solution to really help us with this process. We're really struggling. What can we do? And so that's where we came in with Strato. So a little bit about the project. So they had some real challenges. So as I mentioned, they were generating really, really a lot of documents. They had, I think it was actually, I see the number 250 there, but I was talking to someone today and they actually said to me it was more like 400. They had something like 400 different document templates sitting on a shared drive. And every time they needed to generate one of those documents, someone had to go and make sure they pick up the right one, go and make sure they put in the right information, and then go and make sure they send it to the right person for approval. So this is really that level 1 that we were talking about. They struggled a lot with that, as you can imagine. They had not only massive amounts of effort going into that. But I think they also had some, you can imagine some issues where, okay, whoops, somebody accidentally included the wrong clause in a job offer, and now that employee's entitled to something they shouldn't have been entitled to. So there's those types of issues as well. But through this, what we did was we built out the Strato solution. We integrated it directly with their SAP SuccessFactors system and workflow to streamline their processes, and basically took away all of that manual work and said, no, let's move you through to that level 3 maturity. Let's automate everything that we can do. So we built a number of templates in the Strato tool. I'll show you how we do that in the demonstration and how simple that can be. And we then basically built out all that automation within the tool as well. They were pulling data, in their case, they were pulling data from kind of a little bit of everything. They have some information primarily from the SuccessFactors recruiting environment, but they also had things like pay scale information. They had things like work schedule information. Okay, are you rostered on for these particular days? Do you work these types of shifts? All of that kind of complex information. You can imagine in this type of mining environment, you have fly in, fly out people, you have unionized people, you have every kind of complex person you might have in a company. And they needed to pull all of those together from a single place, from different places as well. So that's really where they, what we did for them was automate that process. And you can see on the side there, the left-hand side there, some of the results. I think speaks for itself, really. But also there's obviously, I think, a lot of what I would call qualitative improvements as well. So obviously having nicer letters, having the right letters gives that employee experience, gives that candidate experience much improved as well. So talking about some of the differentiators, how we got there. So, you know, we did, even though this customer was very familiar to us and we worked very closely with them, we did still have to compete to say why they should use Strato over some other systems that they had in mind as well. So what were those differentiators? Why did they choose to go with us, and what was so great about Strato? I won't go into every single one, but I think some of the really critical things that we saw was how configurable everything is and how easy it is. So Strato is a no-code environment. You'll see that it's easy to build, it's easy to maintain, but very powerful. So that was something that they really saw as an important thing. From the commercial side, we were very flexible. We were able to be very flexible when it comes to how we license the product. Is it based on we really based it on what they need. So they were able to say, yes, this is the exact use case we want to deliver. How do we license that, and how do we commercialize that? And of course, as it goes with like I mentioned before, we have been working with them for some time. Not only does that mean we were a trusted partner of theirs, but it also meant because they had some of our other solutions, we were able to really integrate everything all together really well as well. So what I'm going to do before I jump into the system and do the demonstration, I want to explain a little bit ahead of time to make it a bit easier to follow. So what we're going to see is really that letter of offer process that we talked about. The first thing is, how is that letter of offer generated? So it's dynamic, ideally, automatically, like we talked about. What happens when it's generated? It's sent to the recruiter for approval. So I will be acting on behalf of a number of different people in the system. So that's why I wanted to just explain it first. So first off, you'll see I'm the recruiter. How does it work for me? Secondly, we'll see what happens after the recruiter's happy. The hiring manager receives the document. They're able to also do their own part. And then they're going to send it off to the candidate. And the candidate's going to see the same thing. They're going to digitally sign it. And then you'll see that it's stored back into the system at the end as well. So first off, like I mentioned, my view in the first place, I'm going to have a look what it looks like from a recruiter's perspective. This is my SuccessFactors homepage. I'm logged in as a recruiter in this particular case. What you'll notice in the homepage here, some of you will be familiar, some not. That's okay. What I see here is I have a whole stack of different tiles in my homepage. The only thing I wanted to note here is we do have here directly the Strato integration. So we have these different tiles linked. We can have things like employee self-service, manager self-service, or we have our dashboard. And I'll actually dive into the dashboard directly in a moment. Where I wanted to start though from a recruiter's perspective, because I talked about the automation, is when they're managing a candidate, when they're working with candidates, how are we triggering that automation? How are we doing things automatically? I'm going to show you how it should work automatically, and then I'm actually going to trigger everything manually, just because for the purposes of the demonstration, it makes it a little bit clearer how everything works. So if I'm a recruiter, I'm here in my candidates information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to simply come into this candidate and say, yes, they've had an offer and that offer has been approved. What happens here in SuccessFactors, we have a really great system which is called Intelligence Services. Intelligence Services monitors all of the activity in the SuccessFactors environment. And when certain things happen in those environments, it's going to trigger out a call somewhere else or do some kind of integration. What does that mean really for practical purposes? It means as soon as I change that option to offer approved, it's going to automatically trigger and say, okay, Strato, go ahead and start that process of the job offer letter now. It could also be, we have also a lot of intelligence services in Employee Central. So every time you change an employee's job information, we're automatically triggering some kind of event as well. Anytime we set a candidate to rejected, we're automatically. So that's where we talk about that automation. Okay, so I've done that part. So as a recruiter, I'm now expecting, okay, the process has started. But first of all, I'll just quickly show the dashboard, how I would also do it manually and what kind of options I have there, just to give us a little bit more information too. So this here is my Strato dashboard. What I see in my Strato dashboard is up the top here is my document generation. So when I want to trigger a workflow process, an automation process, or I want to generate a document, then I can do that here. I also have a couple other items. I have to-do list when I'm involved in different processes, and I have some administration and reporting tools as well if I need it. But we're really interested in this top part. One thing to note is these are also all dynamically built, which means based on my login, so I'm logged in as a recruiter right now, it controls what I see when I come into this screen. So I can still generate documents for myself. So I mentioned we have some self-service capabilities here, but as a recruiter, I'm mainly interested in this recruiting tab here. The recruiting tab is where I can see all of the different applicants, all the different recruiting requisitions that I'm involved in, and I can actually go ahead and trigger some processes or generate some documents from there. So this is that same candidate we were looking at in that candidate profile. I can go ahead and generate a process for Natesh that's going to kick off the workflow, same as it would automatically. In this case, just so that we have it there, that we can see that it's triggering off successfully, and that's going to go through the right process for him now. The other nice thing that I can do here is if I ever need to, I can, of course, like you saw, I just searched by the name. I can drop down here and do some more advanced searches. Maybe I want to find some specific people where I want to reject, send them a rejection letter. I can do that very easily from the dashboard here. But more importantly, what happens when that process is triggered? So I've started off that workflow for Natesh. So I would expect then, the way that we've built it in Strato is that we're getting these notifications. We've built these via email. It can be that we use that to-do list to manage these instead, but in our case, we're just going to show how we see that as an email. So as the recruiter, the first thing I get is an email telling me, hey, you set that candidate to approved. We've automatically generated the job offer letter. Now we need you to review it and approve it. So I've got this email. You can see in our case, it's a relatively simple one. Everything we can do here, we can do really nice professional emails. We can customize this a lot using the Strato tool, and I'll show you that a little bit when we get into the back end as well. So I received the email as the recruiter. I can then go in and view that document. So this is my letter of offer for my friend Natesh. A couple things that are interesting here, I would note when we have a look at the compensation and the benefits, and when we have a look at the relocation allowance, these are items that are automatic based on the information in the system. So Natesh is allowed to have a relocation allowance. He's also going to have a bonus. If I generated this for a candidate where that was not the case, then I would not see that information, and that's all automatic as part of the Strado document solution. The other thing that's really helpful is you'll notice if I scroll down, I have a really long document. That's where my digital signature will go. Here's my job description. But for the most part, this is really a generated document. I'm not doing any of the work myself. But if I need to, I can have a little bit of extra flexibility. I can have a section up the top here, which is editable, only this one part, obviously not the key things like salary and other conditions, but I can put in something here. 1st of November 2022. If I ever needed to, for whatever reason, add those things in dynamically in the process as well. I'm happy with that now, so I'm going to go ahead and send it across to the hiring manager. At this point, I'll see the digital signature screen. So this is our built-in Strado sign tool. This allows us to do a digital signature. I can upload, scribble, type, of course. We can also integrate with a DocuSign or Adobe Sign if we need to, but using our built-in Strado sign tool gives us a little bit more flexibility and capability as it relates to workflowing to different actors and getting different levels of approval. So from a recruiter's perspective, I've done my job. I'm done. What I expect then next is, as a hiring manager, so I'm going to take off my recruitment hat, put on my hiring manager hat. As a hiring manager, I'm also going to see now a notification. So I have another email open here. Looks the same, basically. Of course, it could be different. We can have different formatting for Maya. So Maya Cooper has received a note. It's also telling her, once you approve, it's automatically sent to the candidate. And if you don't approve it, please ensure you tell us why. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like. Oops, the window's gone the wrong way. So Maya Cooper, as the hiring manager, she sees that same document. You'll notice if I scroll down, I have my digital signature, and I'm not allowed to edit the document. This is in a final version now. So as a hiring manager, I only have the ability to review. I do have the option down the bottom here. I can provide my signature, which will end up here, obviously. I can reject that. If I choose to reject the letter, I need to provide a reason, and that will be provided back into the recruiter so that they know why I rejected it. And the other option, I can also request a change. So maybe I see something, actually the relocation allowance should be higher. The recruiter got that wrong. I can request a change and provide that information and send it back to the recruiter to make those changes. I'm actually happy with this already, so I'm going to accept and sign. My signature's already saved. I've done this before. Let's go ahead. And that's then been approved, and it's going to go on to the next person in the process. So the last part then, and I have one more window open already, is the candidate themselves. So they're going to also receive a notification which is saying, very happy to offer you the job. Of course, you can write something really nice and really fancy here if you want to really attract the candidates in the best way possible. For us, it was easy to just provide something simple. And they're going to also receive a link to view that document. In the case of the candidate, it's a little bit different. What they're going to see is they don't have a SuccessFactors login. So for all of those other actors, so when I was logged in as a recruiter, as I mentioned earlier, there's a single sign-on. I'm automatically able to approve it, and the system knows who I am and that I am the recruiter. As a hiring manager, the system knows I'm the hiring manager and allows me to do that. As a candidate, what we've actually set up in this case is they don't have a SuccessFactors account. They don't have any kind of role in SuccessFactors. So they need to actually log into the system directly and provide their approval that way. In this case, we've done it very simple. And we've given Natesh a password. Natesh's password is his first name. It could be anything else. It could be the first name. It could be date of birth and address, or a combination of things. But it's something that the candidate will know that is not obvious to anybody else. And as we'll see, same document. I have the 2 digital signatures there already. And as I'm the candidate, mine is the last one. I also have the option to reject the offer. That's going to notify back to the recruiter, again with the comment that I provide. And it's also possible, if I want to, I can update the system automatically and say that actually the candidate rejected. I'm happy, so I'm going to go ahead and sign that as well. Okay, very good. So now we just go back to a few steps. That's okay. Hopefully this one at least is still logged in. Yeah. And that's where the candidate has completed the process. And that means the last stage is really to tell everybody that it was successful. So there'll be a notification that goes back to the hiring manager. Hey, congratulations, your candidate was happy. There'll be a notification back to the recruiter. Good job, you provided some good service there and you've got your candidate. And what's nice is we will actually take that document and store it back into the candidate's profile as well. So we have a final version of that document that we have stored in the system of record that we can always pull that back up and check on it later. So you'll see here, back in my Natesh, I have a section down here for an offer letter. I can always open up here and see that PDF attached into there once I've completed it. Okay, so that's the overview of what does the process look like, I guess, from a user experience, from a hiring manager, recruiter, candidate experience. What I would show you quickly now is a little bit about how we built that. So what does it take to actually build one of those job offer letters to get a little bit more understanding to what the possibilities are? Our examples are nice, simple ones that are easy to follow, easy to understand, I hope. But I want to give a bit more of a feeling for the power of the system as well in the back end. So to do that, I'm going to go to a system that is logged out, of course, and just log back in. And here I will jump across to our Strato system. This is the back end of the tool. I'm not going to go into a lot of the technical details. I'm sure that's not so exciting for us. But suffice to say, we set everything up here. As I mentioned, it's all very easy to do. It's really built for an end user to use. It's not a tool that we've built so that there's a lot of development required, a lot of consulting required. It's very much there to be used by the user. So what I'm looking at here is the Strato document library. What I'm looking at, this folder in particular, is everything that relates to that recruitment process that I just walked you through. So we have from top to bottom a long list of the actual email templates. We won't look at those in detail because they're not super exciting. The one I did want to briefly show, though, is actually the document template editor. This is where we can really build up all of those document templates that we need and really build automation and dynamic conditions into our documents. This here is the job offer letter that we were just looking at. So we'll see basically some core information, some static parts of the document. Here's where we need the digital signatures, for example. Here's where we're pulling in the job description from the system. And every little blue underlined part here is where we're pulling in data from SuccessFactors. So very easy to do. Anyone who's familiar with the standard SuccessFactors document generation tool will be familiar with, okay, I have to go into the back end and build a token, and then I have to link it through, and then I have to put it into the document. And I've probably got 5 different templates, one with a relocation allowance, one without, one with a stock option, one without, etc., etc. What we've got in Strato is super easy. You'll see I can come in here, say, for example, I want to make a change. At the moment, I only have the candidate's first name. I want to include the candidate's last name. I can come here into my field selection. I have available all of the data that's available to me from the SuccessFactors environment. Could also be SAP HCM like we talked about, but we're focused on SuccessFactors recruiting here. And just basically come in, add a field. This section here we showed was editable. There's also some sections here, which is really important. We talked about this as well, which is these ones are conditional. They're basically saying only show this portion of the job offer if it's relevant to that candidate, or if it's relevant to that job requisition, I guess is more the way it works. So when we generated the job offer for Natesh, Natesh had a relocation allowance, Natesh had a bonus, Natesh did not have stock options. That's because there's a condition here that says only show this part of the document if that job requisition, if that position, that job is eligible for a stock package, and that stock package is worth more than 0. Ideally, you want something that's worth something. And that's how we get that capability to automate the document build, not have to go in and choose all these different templates and provide different things, but really to very easily get the exact document that we need. One last thing that I would mention in here, because I think it's really important and was very important for this customer especially, is when we build these documents, we can also build them in multiple languages. And that allows us to provide, especially to a candidate, really a nice candidate experience, because I can provide, for example, myself, I live in Germany. When I receive documentation or notifications from my company, I prefer to receive them in English. That's my spoken language. But when I have legal documents, I like to get those in German. Well, I need to get those in German, because if I ever go to the bank or I'm going to some kind of government office, then they expect to have that in the right language. What Strato allows us to do is build those documents in those different languages. And when we're providing them to the candidate, when we're providing them to the employee, we can say, okay, this document is a legal document, therefore provide it in their local language. So for me, it's German. This document is not a legal document, or this is just an email to the employee, provide that in their preferred language, the one that they like to read. So provide it to me in English. And really get that level of experience for the candidates, for the employees, where they are most comfortable with the information that they're receiving from the system. And then just to very quickly show one last thing, and then I'll stop with the finish with the demonstration, is I showed you the automation, and I showed you how we were able to route the document through to different people. This is just a very quick view. I'm not going to change anything or configure anything, but just to give you an idea, what does that automation look like? Or how simple can it be, but how powerful is it at the same time? And this is that exact same process we just looked at. So the document is generated, it's sent to a recruiter for review, the hiring manager can modify it, the hiring manager can send it to the candidate, and in the end, it's stored into the system and notified out to the right people. So simple to build. You can see it's a nice flow here, and you have really a lot of capabilities that allow you to do different things within that process.
Thank you very much, Brendan. Okay, I've got some questions here. First one is about document languages.
Yep.
So can we control the document language based on the logged in language only, or can we use a preferred language from a candidate profile?
Yeah, good question. So I think I just mentioned a little bit about that. I'm not sure if I was so clear. So we have a few options there. One is, generally speaking, we do use the logged in language, and for the most part, that's fine. But we do have some more control as well. We can give the user the option. They can choose themselves. Oh, in this case, I need it in English. In this case, I need it in German. Or we can use definitely the candidate's preferred language. I like to do that from the candidate profile. There's also a preferred language for an employee when you're in Employee Central. And we have that dynamic capability in the workflow engine as well that we can use to choose different parts in different languages too.
Thank you, Brendan, for that. Next question is a good one. It's about LinkedIn. So, can you pull third-party information from someone like LinkedIn, for example?
Yeah, good question. Yes, I would say the short answer is yes. So what we mentioned a bit earlier was, as part of that automation engine, we have some capabilities to extend that with other APIs as well. I can't speak to LinkedIn exactly. I haven't worked with the LinkedIn APIs personally. I know that they exist, but certainly we've done this with other systems. So for example, one of our customers, they wanted to integrate some data from Microsoft Dynamics, and we used some APIs to do that. And another one, they had some ServiceNow integrations they wanted to build, and we were able to use the extensibility of the automation engine to use those APIs as well.
Yeah, or if you want to
connect
LinkedIn.
Thank you, Brendan. I think we've got time for a couple more questions.
Sure.
Are the permissions in Strato coming from the SuccessFactors RBP, or are they separate?
Yeah, good question also. So basically what we do, you would have seen when I was in that Strato administration screen, there is a user role management. What we do there is we actually have, I guess, what I would call an on-top role system. So first thing is, when we're taking data from SuccessFactors, we are always following the SuccessFactors permissions. That means as a user, I can only generate documents when I have access to the right data. I can only generate things for employees I'm authorized for. That's important. But the second thing is, we do build on top of that. Okay, who sees what tabs in the dashboard? Who's able to generate which types of documents? Which users can modify different things in Strato? That's an additional role concept in the Strato system, but it's automatically aligned to the SuccessFactors RBP. That means when I'm a recruiter in SuccessFactors, I can log into Strato and I'm automatically a recruiter in Strato as well. So we automate it that way.
Thanks, Brendan. Let's take another question. Is there an additional cost to add your signature tool within the process?
I'll let you take that one, Frank.
Yeah, I can do so. Yeah, so we support also other signature tools. That's right. So for instance, it's DocuSign. Yeah, so you can also, if you have still DocuSign, then you can use this one as well. And yeah, if you have any other tools, yeah, we are also able to connect these tools to our signature capability in Strato. Yeah, as a request, of course. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to have one last question. Before I ask it and do the wrap up, let me just remind you that if you go to the Handouts tab, there's a couple of brochures, a great presentation, and some videos about Strato and about Spinifex IT in general. So do check those out before you leave. One final question. Is it possible to insert different components into documents based on values provided by SuccessFactors? For example, Company 1 has a different agreement. Company 2 has a specific requirement with regards to employees, for example.
Yeah, so definitely yes. What we saw in that document, especially around the stock options and the relocation allowances, those are conditions that we build based on data that we can see in the system. It could be data from a candidate themselves, of course. It could be, okay, if you live in a certain state, we have different requirements for those employees. It could be information about the position they're moving into or the company that position belongs to. Having a different logo, for example, on the document based on which company they're working for is super easy as well. So all of that is very, very much doable in Strato, and kind of one of the key points for sure.
Okay, thank you, Brendan. Actually, we've had a quick question in from Magali. Can we access SAP Fiori or only SAP SuccessFactors? Quick last
Yeah,
question.
we can also integrate with SAP Fiori, definitely. So Strato is built, like I said earlier, primarily as a SuccessFactors tool, but also we have a number of customers who are just SAP HCM customers. And in those cases, we can directly integrate it with the Fiori. It's all supported as well, yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, so do check out the handouts on the handouts tab. 2 brochures, a presentation, and some videos as well. That's all we have time for. Thanks very much to Frank, Brendan as well, for your insights on this topic. We will be sending a recording around today of everyone who signed up, not just those who attended today. So do watch out for that in your inboxes, but it will also be available on demand on the Unleash website. Have a great rest of the week, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.